2 days. Phil, Stephanie, my wife.
Hello.
Part of the team. And she's doing videotape. And we're going to first talk real quick about the cooker. I built this cooker. It does exactly what I want it to do. It's insulated. I run it 2 ways. I run it low and slow, 230 for my big muscles for KCBS, brisket, shoulders. And then for ribs and chicken, I run it fast and hot, 330 degrees. It is a water cooker. There's a 48-inch pan that's rectangle that sits in the center. That's 22 inches from front to back. There's fins to deflect and grease traps on each side to catch any excess grease. And over here, we have a firebox. You look down in there. Okay? And what we'll run is, we'll run it up 5-6 logs. We do about 3 oak. And we, up in Wisconsin, we have our own limited choice of oak. So we can't get red all the time, but mostly red. White, depending on what trees and so forth. We also run a little bit of apple and hickory. Not too much, but mainly oak. Then what we'll do is we'll fire this guy up to where that water is boiling, and it's not steam. What we're going to talk about real quick is relative humidity. Relative humidity is the ratio between your dry heat and your wet bulb. In manufacturing, when you have those big industrial smokehouses that have computers and everything, well, this is a simplified version of that. You have wet bulb and dry bulb is the way the term that we use. And we run the max amount of wet bulb. And some people think, oh, you're steaming. Well, you're not steaming. You're creating humidity. And with that huge of a fire, when we have this thing, that's usually like engulfed in, you know, for 3.5, 4 hours. We cook our ribs for about 4 hours. The reason we do that is because we want to roast that meat, we want to smoke it at the same time, and we want to keep it moist. For a thin piece of meat, I mean, you're only talking 1 inch thick. I used to do them low and slow all the time. And they come out good, but the window of accuracy is very up in the air with that. You could turn them into jerky if you drop your temp. All you're doing is drying out a thin piece of meat at a low temp. So we prefer fast and hot, and that's why we do that, is we get a nice bark, we sear the outside of the meat, and the inside's moist. And we're going to show you that just as we taste it here. Any questions on the cooker? About 7 gallons. And it lasts about 5-6 hours running at 330 degrees. We run probably about 4 hours on the wood until we add 2 logs once we get it up. And so we have we have our method to our madness, but that'll take longer than 10 minutes to explain. But I have nothing to hide here today. I want you to leave here learning something. Go ahead, take a rib. I'm going to put it on the tray. Phil's going to walk you over and get a drink. Any particular one. We're going to talk about the ribs first, and the one in front, and then we're going to talk about the sauce, and then we're going to talk about the seasoning. Phil, why don't you walk him up, get him a beverage.
Water, okay? Water's great.
Oh, that's still water. That's good to go.
All right, good.
If we could just keep the rain and the flies away, right? Yeah, I think it is.
This is our first MBN. I know we don't need forks and all that, but I've seen people doing it, so I brought them with. Figured join the club, you know. But I like
KCBS.
Huh?
Primarily
KCBS, yeah. We've been this is our 8th event this year. And it's been pretty successful. We've been using the same fork all year. Now I'm going to talk real quick about that. White Marble Farms. Pork's a pork. We know if you're familiar with the beef business, everything's a box and a label, and a lot of it's marketing. Well, Cargill developed this pig. It's a crossbreed. They haven't released what it is because they don't want people to copy what it is. However, we're very happy with the Marlin. I compare this to a Berkshire. Very similar. The loin meat, you can see the amount of meat that's on there. None of that's loin meat. It's a shorter, fatter pig that they pump up to about 340 pounds before they butcher, but they're shorter loins, and these are true baby backs. They're not loin backs. And I prefer cooking those just because of the consistency and size that we get. And you end up on loin backs, you end up getting rid of the end two bones anyway. So, White Marble Farm, great pork. We use it on our pork shoulder, and we use it on our ribs. I'm going to go ahead and cut off just one of them real quick for you, just to go ahead and munch on. And then I'm going to give you a couple double cuts here. And then I have some sauce for you here to try. See that? Still juicy. Well, that's not pretty as well there. Not every animal's the same though, is it? But we're real happy with this meat. Comes clean, right through, and this is the texture that we like to cook on baby backs. The sauce I mentioned earlier, a little bit of science that we do, and it's just the passion that I have for barbecue and have the fortunate ability to do this is we make all our own seasonings, we make all our own sauces. Everything is formulated, and I have nothing to hide. I'm going to talk through that formula real quick with you. Why don't you try that sauce on some of your ribs there? That is our sweet red sauce that we like to refer to. And one of the main parts of that, we got brown sugar, sugar cane. One of the two spices that we have in there is ají panca. Ají panca is a Peruvian chili pepper. I didn't want to go hot, but the idea is you want a little bit of spice. Ají panca is kind of like that low heat cayenne that finishes real short and it doesn't burn in your mouth. Compared to white pepper? No, not even close. A chili pepper. Just a red chili pepper, but it's very bright red, orangish when it comes in its ground form. Apple juice, Worcestershire. So here's our formula if you care to take a look at it. This is everything that's in that sauce down to the percentage. And that's how, if you were to come to me and say, Matt, I want you to make my barbecue sauce for me, this is what your formula is going to look like. You would hand me a recipe and tablespoons and cups and this and that, and I'm going to go ahead and weigh it all out, and then we have to manufacture it. And sometimes all the ingredients have to be a little bit tweaked. But me knowing what I want, the beauty of it is that this sauce tastes exactly the way I wanted it to. And that was the point, is to be able to fine-tune it down to the percentage. Oh, well, that doesn't do it. Add a little more. Well, if you add 2 tablespoons instead of 1 tablespoon, well, you just went up 100% of your increase in hotness or something. But it's a lot more accurate. So, last but not least, the seasoning. What we did on the seasoning for this pork. We have 2 rubs that we use. We have a pre-dust and a finishing dust. The pre-dust is kind of like your foundation. Instead of putting vinegar or mustard or something on where they like to glue it on and get tacky, we have a pre-dust solution which has a pork meat flavor. And it's an all-natural flavor that is white pork meat. It tastes like white pork meat. You got a little bit of salt, white pepper, corn syrup solids, and we put that on the pork. And we let it soak in for a couple hours. And then we put our regular rub on, or what we call a finishing dust. And that finishing dust has been very successful all year. We use it on KCBS, we use it on our pork shoulder and our ribs. We don't change flavor systems at all on this, because it's been really successful. We've gotten a couple first place with it. One of the highlights to this pork finishing dust, and a lot of this is the keys. This is what we call in our industry the keys to the city. I'm showing you this formula because I'm not really worried about anyone trying to copy it here. I want you to leave and understand and learn something. We got salt, paprika, sugar, dry, ají panca, garlic, onion, honey crystals. That's the key. in this one is instead of putting everyone's drizzling their honey, this is a dry form of sprayed honey crystal granules, and that goes into the rub, and that's at 36%. So for every 2/3 of seasoning, I have 1/3 of a cup of honey crystals that are part of it, and that balances it out.
And this is in your
This is in the finishing rub, and we put a lot of it on. We probably put about 4 to 6%.
it goes on with
It goes on about an hour and a half, 2 hours before we cook. There's no reason scientifically to put a rub on all night. You get some flavor, but you're still going to need to put some fresh rub on because of the water leaching out of your meat. It's going to wash it away, and you're going to lose flavor. Sometimes we'll season right before we put on the grill because you're seasoning. It's about that finishing home run with it and the flavors. When you cook for 4 hours, you're flashing off 40% of the flavor of any seasoning in the chamber. So you need to reapply, and then you have to also put some of the seasoning into your sauce and give it that boost. We also have a little bit of kaffir lime flavor, which is a natural powder. You can't really, kaffir limes are so rare, you can't get a lot of them in abundance. So what they'll do is we'll steep a lot of them and boil them and make a broth, and then use that water and then plate that solution of kaffir lime onto the salt. And then that salt will be in your rub, so you get that essence of kaffir limes. And right here, I'm going to hand you, this is a little bit of the pork rub finishing dust, and this is the rub that goes on prior to that. A little bit extra there. And we put some of this, because it has so much foundation of pork, into this to help it along also. Like that? What marriage? What? I'm curious. What do you? What's your impression on the quality of the meat?
It's a good quality piece of meat.
Okay.
You can tell by it. I mean, it's got a feel to it. Like you said, the meatiness of in between the bones. It's there. And the fact that it's a true baby back, and there's no points left on it.
Nope. It came with a little bit on there, but it was so thin that renders off with the bark that it's not worth taking a knife to, worth shining your bone and getting shiners on.
And there's none of those either.
Yeah.
You usually have one or the other.
Right. Obviously, God made animals, and you know. So, what do you think, Dennis?
I need one, yeah.
Thank you.
One sneaky and one regular. Oh, great.
Okay, texture, what do you think? Yeah? Yeah. Cool. All right. Let me get you a towel here. Sticky all day. Have you had a Bloody Mary? Were you here earlier?
No, don't leave that till after we judge.
So after, okay. Well, I want to invite you back.
Time to make my palate.
Definitely. We got some water here for you.
You answered several questions I've had, and one of them was the honey crystals.
Okay. What can I answer any more about the cooking process or the meat or this, how we, I want to give you the whole picture here of what we did.
You've been just very easy.
Thank you very much. And when you're done today, I'd love to hear some other deep, if you want to come and just chew, whatever, talk, we're open.
20 seconds.